Hi guys, welcome to the video. Today we're going to talk about magnolias. I'm so excited about this video. I feel like these are one of the most beautiful flowers, probably apart from roses, they're probably one of the most romantic flowers. That they bloom so beautifully and so profusely, and the beautiful way that the petals sway, yeah, they're really lovely. I think they're like the kind of ballerinas of the flower world. I wanted to put a few minutes of this footage at the beginning so you can kind of feel like what it's like to stand under the tree. The petals are falling softly, the sun is kind of dappled on the trunk of the tree. It's such a surreal feeling to be surrounded by these magnolia blossoms, and I want to share that with you a little bit to get a little bit of the sense of when we're painting these, what they're kind of like. Okay, so we only had the tree for about 5 days this year. I will talk a little bit more about that at the end, but I'm just going to show you each of those days. I kind of did a few things. You can see I got some pastels as well, and that was just like my first little intro to swatching them a little bit. But each day I did a few things. I'm kind of just flipping through and showing you here at the beginning, and then we'll go through and talk through and paint some of these things in a bit of a chronological order, so I can show you kind of the process of starting with a new or a different kind of subject. I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions in art, and we do talk about this a fair bit, but is just that you should be able to kind of pick anything to paint and it should be very easy. And if you can't do it on the first try, then it's, you know, you're not good at it, which I mean is so far from kind of reality. We absolutely have to learn how to paint the things we want to paint. And I read something a couple of weeks ago, and it said that the first 10 hours of anything, you know, it might be, I think they were sort of giving the analogy more of like kids learning maybe the violin or a sport or something like that. But the first 10 hours is exciting. It's where, you know, everything's fun and new. You're learning all the supplies. You know, as a kid, you might get a new musical instrument or a new like soccer uniform or something like that. With us, you know, it's often like getting some new art supplies. But then the next 100 hours after that is where you have to learn and grow. Your neural pathways are thickening. So with that knowledge in mind, these are kind of the steps that I take to, you know, take on a new subject. So the very first thing that I did, the first day the flowers were out in bloom, I think there was like a day before this they were semi out in bloom, but then this was the first day they were really nicely out. So I went out and picked a few, and you can see I brought them in and I just did a few little videos with them. Even if you don't have a YouTube channel or something like that, it's a good idea to do a little video to remind yourself kind of what, what they were like, and to have that kind of reference material there for you. So yeah, and then also kind of to look at them from different angles. So just spend a little bit of time just observing the flower that you're trying to paint. The next thing I like to do is to get a sketching tool. So some people like charcoal or things like that. I will often go to either pastels or a pencil, and just kind of whatever feels maybe like that scene or like that flower. At this point, I really was drawn to the Holbein Ash Rose. This is really similar to the Luminance, one of the Luminance ones, but you can see here that I just kind of looked at not the whole arrangement on my desk, but I would pick like one of the flowers and kind of start sketching in just petal by petal. And then I got a very soft neutral. This is the Derwent Lightfast Fossil, and it's just a really nice soft kind of pearly grey, and just started putting in a little bit of that shaping, a little bit of the shadow. Without overthinking it, I am just trying to get a little bit of rendering done, get a little bit of an idea of what's going on here with these petals. So every morning I would try and take about 30 or 40 minutes to do a couple of sketches. This was the first one, and then I got some pastels, and so we'll swatch these out in a little bit in the video. But I got a few of these Sennelier pastels. I really do love these ones. I love using them wet as well. But I was actually looking for some blues, some pale blues. And then I ended up with this little arrangement in my cart. So it's actually been really nice for the florals. And I'll show you which ones I have been mainly using for the florals. But so you can see I kind of went to these two, so more the flowers on the right on my desk, and I sketched those out, and then I sketched these out very, very pale. So I kind of have these three sketches that I did the first morning. It's very interesting, like, to look at how the different leaves are curling and unfurling, how the kind of shadows are there, and also like the two petals that were in the middle. When I sketched this out, I didn't leave enough room for them really to put them in. So it's interesting just doing quick sketches like that, so you can kind of figure out more accurately how to portray something. And I find that I really love doing sketches like this with pretty colors. I feel like I talked about the 100 hours of kind of neural pathway thickening that you need to do. If you can make it more fun or more enjoyable, so a little bit more like the first 10 hours, taking those things that you enjoyed about that and trying to put those into the day-to-day learning. So this was the second day now, and I love like the way that these Sennelier pastels sit on the paper they give, like they kind of sit a little bit up, which is really nice. This is actually a Paper Republic sketchbook. And so like I just did a few things on these pages, just again, kind of quick ideas and sketches, just seeing how the colors worked. And you can see like I'm always swatching something. So that was some pencils. Okay, I think we're on day 3 now, and this day I pulled out the R&F drawing oils, and I feel like I really love these, but I feel like because I didn't really have any lighter colors, it's a little bit unnerving for me to have to kind of make these bolder marks, which is actually good to kind of get you out of your comfort zone. You can see what I mean here. Like the previous day I had done this very, very soft kind of idea, sketch, and even like the one the day before, and then I had to kind of really commit to it. I feel like when you see art that you really love, one of the things is that they take risks, and a kind of part of it is figuring out, will those pay off, will they not? And this is when we sort of talk about how do you know when it's done, or can you push it a little bit further? And that's just really all this kind of 100 hours of practicing different things. And I guess that's what starts to build all the different layers of mastery of something, of a skill, is that you can spend 100 hours just on colour. You can spend 100 hours on pencils, or on watercolor, or on, different mediums. And then over time, those kind of all fuse together to make a really strong skill set. So this was the day that I had gotten these pastels, maybe back in January or something like that. So I was really excited about just swatching these out for you. I love, so what we'll do is we swatch the colour, and then I'm going to swatch it a second time so we can blend it with the next colour, and then we will go and wet them as well. I think that Sennelier actually creates a pastel paper now that can handle water as well. But yeah, I am just such a big fan of pastels in general. I feel like they're just such a beautiful and workable medium. One thing to note with pastels, and I always like to mention this, is that a lot of pastel artists have a air filtration system. So just be careful, breathing in this dust is not often safe, and it can actually be quite damaging. So it's good to do this somewhere where it's well ventilated. And I'll often have like a piece of scrap paper or paper towel to the side where I just carefully tap the book onto that, so that I'm not kind of blowing the dust everywhere or something like that. But yeah, you can see how beautiful and kind of the immediacy of the richness of the color of pastels I really love as well, I think. And then just the soft way that they blend together as well. It's so lovely. The other thing that's really interesting, so I've always just enjoyed using pastels with water, but I heard recently that Degas used to use prints, and then he'd print the print, maybe he'd do a second print, then he would use pastels on top and work into them that way as well. So, and then with paint or with water or with spray fixatives, and then do more layers. So I feel like it's a really interesting kind of way to use a product. And here I'm thinking about the Impressionists. I'm thinking about even like modern artists like Ken Doan, and just thinking about these kind of backgrounds, these building and layering of colours. Even like I love pointillism. So it's nice to kind of explore these different types of ways to create colour, to build colour. And what that kind of, how that would look. And so like you're building up these kind of internal networks of knowledge, again, by just these small ideas and not in a stressful way. I hope that makes sense. So this is the little page of swatches that I did to show you the colours I'm really mostly using for these florals. I think the kind of only thing it's missing is like a more of a yellow green, more like a green gold. But yeah, so I want to quickly show you a little bit of an idea of how to paint these petals. So we'll just work on one petal, not an entire flower. So we're just putting the petal down and kind of following this shape. You can see it kind of cinches in, and then it goes out and just into this kind of, not necessarily a point, but kind of the end. And then looking at these little striations and how they kind of move up the petal. So it's always nice to kind of just look at little things like that. Again, like you don't have to do it in pencil. You can do it in a something that you like, something that you enjoy to use. It might be a marker. It might be a neo color. It's also nice to practice the shape kind of on the side, because when you kind of rotate this up a little bit, that's kind of the side petals that you'll often see. Okay, so I have sketched this out on some cotton paper here so we can paint it. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just wet the entire petal. Now, sometimes we could use, a tinted wash to sort of wet that area. I just used water for this one because we're going to build up some of these darker, sort of more vibrant pinks, but we are going to leave some of that little bit of the nice white peeking through. So I just kind of start down the bottom there where I can see these kind of deepest, richest colours. And then keeping that kind of veining in mind that we just sketched out, I'm kind of going to start putting colour up the top of the petal in a lighter kind of way. So then I go back and drop in more colour at the bottom of the petal here. As you're working it, you can kind of see, do I need to pull some colour out? Like here, I'm kind of lifting some colour back out. The colour will start to kind of feather, and so you just kind of manage it and keep an eye on where is it going, where can I add some stronger colour. At this stage, the paper's still nice and wet and workable. Where can I lift colour out? I can also see down the bottom the kind of a little bit more of this burnt sienna colour mixed in with this kind of magenta. So I'm using Daniel Smith Sedona as my burnt sienna with Isero Rose, which would be like a Daniel Smith quinacridone rose or a magenta colour. And so let's talk about some of my favourite mixes. I actually really enjoyed doing this flower by flower as well because it feels like it gives the mixes a nice way to kind of shine. But this is just the Isero Rose, or again like a quinacridone rose, just dipped in water. I absolutely love using these kind of rose colours and just using water to mix it with. It makes such a beautiful, very, very softly tinted rose colour. Then another mix that I've been really enjoying is that kind of colour with ultramarine violet. We talked about that a little bit last time. And then I really do love Sedona with any kind of pinks. It makes them kind of this really beautiful earthy colouring. And these are colours and mixes that I use very often. So I really, really enjoy those types of colours. So the next thing, the last kind of day, maybe the fourth day, and then there was one day after this. So the fourth day I sat down, I'd gone through all these sketches. I felt pretty happier with how everything was going, and so I did like a bit more of a structured sketch. So I took some more time on the initial sketch, trying to get that a little bit more well done, and then just went in and very softly kind of started building up all the different layers. So you can see, just as we worked with petal by petal, I would go in and start building up these really sort of juicy layers of this magenta colour. I would also put in these very soft kind of the undertones of the petals, where you can kind of see this more opalescent quality on the back of them, or like of the inner part of them. It's really beautiful. It's kind of like an oyster colouring, or like opalescent. I loved having this little bit of the middle kind of peeking out from behind that petal. So yeah, you can see kind of one of the sketches and then kind of a more finished product. And I think kind of what I'm trying to show you here is there is a path of least resistance when you're going forward. If I had have started trying to do this sketch on the first day, I would have been frustrated. It would have been stressful. I wouldn't have really understood what was happening, and I wouldn't have gotten it, very well done, and I would have felt really like just upset and frustrated. So going back to basics and kind of starting with little steps and kind of encouraging yourself along really does help to kind of build that kind of bridge for yourself. And then something, when I, brought these in on the first day, and they were, pretty overwhelmingly complex, and suddenly 4 days later, I feel a little bit more confident to, put that together into a more finished sketch. So then this was the last day. So day 5, I could see the flower was not doing that well, but the tree was completely gone. So I'll show you that footage in a minute. But so I wanted to get this final kind of painting in with my poor little flower here. And I think maybe not last year, maybe the year before, we did a full painting of a magnolia, more upright, but this kind of transparent layers. So I will link that video below with kind of the whole process of that. But it was a really nice way to end the week. And again, you can see that I was looking at different like shapes So not just the kind of one main kind of upright shape that we think of with magnolias. Yeah, it was nice to kind of spend the week looking at some of these different beautiful shapes that they create. So yeah, I'm just showing you the footage. At the beginning of the video, that footage was from last year, and this year we had 3 storms pretty much all night, and then we had a just boiling hot week, like the middle of summer. And so these poor little trees really only were blooming for 4 days. Maybe they started to sort of come out, and then 4 days of bloom, and then the 5th day they were completely decimated. So yeah, like the petals were just pouring off the tree on day 3. So we were lucky to kind of get them. I kind of thought we would have had them for another week or 2, and we were going to do some outdoor painting and stuff. But yeah, anyway, I'm glad to have gotten what we did. And I hope this helps. I hope just it helps you to kind of feel like we can there's ways to go through things where we can just be a lot gentler on ourselves and still learn so much. So So the last piece of news is about the shop update. It's taken me since Saturday night to just get this last 2 minutes of footage and get this video to you. I'm going to postpone the shop update for a week, so it won't be this coming Saturday, it will be the one after. And I've had quite a few requests for some full pans or half pans, so I'm going to put a few sets of those in the update as well. The majority of this update is about these souffle palettes. So I have had so many of you waiting for 3 years for the next update of these, and they take quite a lot of work to bring together. So yeah, I do apologize that it's taken so long. I'm also going to include some kind of one-off marbled pieces, and these are still kind of in the works. And then yep, just like a few different colorways of those. So they'll just be like an individual full pan of that particular kind of color. And then the souffle palettes, I have 9 available, so you can see 5 here, and then there'll be 4 more. I'll show you with the shop update as well. And I'm doing 3 little sets of full pans, mostly full pans for the update. And because it is just a limited number and sort of a small update, I tried to do sort of ones that are most asked for. So there'll be 3 different sets, and I'm also showing you here like one of the colors. So these are kind of colors that you guys ask about a lot as well. That's the one that I made that's in my like travel palette. And then the first set at the top is called Spring Rain. So it's got some of the colors that I will often mix and use. The next one is the Daffodils in Spring, and then this one is called Garden Party. And so these will be finished with pearls, and yeah, in 2 weeks they should be ready to pretty much ship out within the first week or 2. So I hope you enjoy, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.